In the 1600s, France occupied a small portion of the island of Hispaniola and called the colony Saint-Domingue. Saint-Domingue had an incredible 8,000 plantations devoted to sugar and coffee and 500,000 African slaves. It was among the richest colonies in the New World. Then the French Revolution came along. While the French Revolution was a symbol of freedom, ironically, Saint-Domingue's slaves opposed it. The monarchy, which is tyrannic in the eyes of the people, put limits on how many slaves colonists could import. Freedom for the people meant freedom to do whatever they wanted with their slaves and the slave trade. So, as ironic as it sounds, slaves opposed the French Revolution. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the greatest generals in history, was at the head of the revolution and he wanted an empire. He got his European empire, but he also wanted a Caribbean empire. He already had Saint-Domingue, one of the richest colonies in the region, so if he had this, he could simply island hop to the rest of the Caribbean islands and exploit their resources. He wasn't the first to come up with this idea. In 1793, Britain, having lost a lot of its land to the brand new USA, wanted to make up for the land it lost. Taking advantage of France's state of weakness and civil war, British warships began sailing for Saint-Domingue. The biggest threat to the army was Mosquito-Borne Disease. Two of the deadliest species of mosquito in the region were Aedes aegypti, which carries yellow fever, and Anopheles albuminus, which carries malaria. It killed the British by the thousands, and by 1798 the British had failed to conquer this tiny piece of land. The people already living in Saint-Domingue were immune to these diseases in two ways. They were either born with immunity, or they developed it after surviving a strain of it. Africans already had immunity to both yellow fever and malaria, which is why they were chosen to be slaves. Because Africans were immune to these diseases, they were imported in large numbers and outnumbered Europeans in their own colonies by such a large margin that the Americas were virtually an extension of Africa population-wise, not Europe. So what does Napoleon do? He sends 65,000 French troops to come and fortify Saint-Domingue and begin to take control of the rest of Hispaniola. Back in Saint-Domingue was Toussaint Louverture, a freed slave who became the leader of the revolution, and he was nicknamed the Black Napoleon. Louverture, with his little equipment and resources, decided to withdraw his men into the highlands and begin guerrilla warfare. This wasn't rare. All across South and Central America, Africans were fleeing from their owners and founding their own kingdoms in the cliffs of the surrounding forests. These are where they slowly picked off whites who ventured into the forest. These people were called Maroons. Disease killed off most of the French army, and rebellions virtually destroyed the plantations of Saint-Domingue, making the colony almost entirely African. By 1803, after disease and bloody violence, only 15,000 French troops managed to leave Saint-Domingue alive. Any dreams of a Caribbean empire were crushed. The country had gained its independence, but it was never the same. Saint-Domingue went from a nation of thriving plantations into one of the poorest countries in the world. We now call that country Haiti, and this is a very basic explanation of the Haitian Revolution. Maroons such as the Saramacca still do exist in Suriname, and they're fighting for their rights in their forests against corporations such as China International Marine Containers that want the region. On the side of the Maroons, this is their land. This is land that they tend to, and they keep it ecologically stable. On the other hand, corporations provide jobs and distribute resources that will benefit the rest of the world. It's a conflict as old as civilization itself. It's happening in Suriname, and it happened 200 years ago in Haiti. Is it freedom or security? Maroon communities in Brazil, called quilombos, have existed since the 1500s. Palmares, the biggest of them, was ruled by Princess Aquiltune, who had been kidnapped from the Congo and escaped slavery to found this military state. Soldiers tried their best, but it was nearly impossible to reclaim the African slaves who had escaped. It wasn't just Africans there. The native Indians who lived there, the Amazonians, provided the framework for their society. They taught the Africans how to survive in the rainforest, what plants to gather, what animals to hunt, and how to build their houses. Defended by an African military and geography, Palmares was open to anyone who was persecuted: Jews, heretics, Muslims, and witches. Palmares is, in my humble opinion, the archetype for a small community, open to diversity, well defended, and self sustainable. But we can't recreate this in our world. There are sadly too many people in this world. There are just too many problems to be solved at once, it seems. This is the importance of history. We need to learn about our past and see how problems were solved in history and identify their flaws so we don't make the same errors. Maybe the Maroons, as uneducated as they seem, can teach us something. Thanks for watching.